All right, let's start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Ruchakudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one it's a response to the well-favored harlot, America. As you can see, I was watching the Elder Apostle Tar's video. I'm sorry, Elder Apostle Gabar's video. And I watched about 18 minutes and around 39 seconds. And what I wanted to do is do like a response, to it, because the main scripture he was in, besides the law on stoning and burning of women that were prostitutes, was in the book of Nahum 3. And in the book of Nahum 3, this was actually speaking about ancient Nineveh at one point, and now it's speaking about America, because America mirrors what was going on in ancient Nineveh. And when most people read the Bible, they don't have a clue of history. They just think it's just a book of a bunch of, a bunch of stories and stuff like that. They don't really know history and how things work and what was going on in these different times. So I just went online and, did a little research myself. I got a couple of pages that I wanted to touch on, and Lord's will, this will be an edifying lesson. I just got to go back and finish watching the Elder Apostle Gabar's video. But one thing that I was thinking about when I was reading the title, The Well-Favored Heart of America Must Be Stoned and Burned, I thought of the stoning and the burning. I thought of the stoned being Yahushua coming to destroy this empire, and then the burning being the missiles and the lasers from the chariots. I don't know what the Apostle Gabar said. I think I got to that point and I paused it, but that's what I was thinking about. So nevertheless, I have this article here. It's called Nineveh's Demise. If you want, you can type, this is Israel, my glory, rightly dividing Nineveh's demise. Now, before I read any of this, I want to just jump down here to defenseless, right? This is one of the sections, and I want you to check this out. When Nahum prophesied of Nineveh's doom, there was no hint of its coming destruction. Just like today, there's really no hint of the coming destruction of America, because they're still a superpower. They don't think that they're ever going down. The city was strong, just like America's strong, self-confident, just like they are self-confident, and recognized for its splendor by the surrounding nations. And that's exactly what America is. So Nahum, when he prophesied of Nineveh, this was a twofold prophecy. It was talking about back then during Nineveh, and it applies today to America, that's following behind the same footsteps. Now let's jump back up to the top of this article, and you have here Nahum 3, 1 through 19, and Nineveh's demise, right? So this is dated January to February 2004, and here it gives you, the list of the different precepts, or the different verses in the chapter. It says, Assyria's unrelenting violence, extortion, and brutality are well documented in the records of its history. More important, however, the Most High kept track of such savagery, and he judged it. And just like he's keeping track of the savagery of America, and he will eventually judge this place. This place has many different nicknames, titles, such as Babylon the Great, Nineveh, Assyria, Egypt, Sodom, so on and so forth. It says in chapter 3, Nahum continued his vivid description of the Most High's destruction of Nineveh and the reason for it. Now we jump down to the part where it says deceitful. Nahum pronounced a series of woes or warnings concerning Nineveh. Woe to the bloody city. This fits America. It is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. Right, and this is pretty much, describing ancient Nineveh and modern day Nineveh, America. Nineveh was a corrupt city of blood. So is America. This has been the most corrupt city of blood. And you know what the scriptures say about blood. If you kill or shed someone's blood in a land, that land cannot be cleansed unless the blood of the person that shed that person's blood be shed also. And that's why the Lord's going to use America as a stomping ground, the grapes, the cluster that's going to get stomped, for the crimes committed in this country, because it's impossible to cleanse all of the blood that these devils shed here. Assyria's cruelty is amply documented on unearthed cuneiform tablets. Assyrian kings even boasted of their cruelty. Prisoners were impaled alive, flayed, beheaded, or dragged to death with ropes attached to rings that pierced their bodies. You could apply some of this stuff to what Esau did to Jake here during slavery and after. With the lynchings, with the castration, chopping off of limbs and all of that. They were very cruel to Jake. So it says they were blinded by the king's own hand and hung by their hands or feet to die slowly. Others had their brains beaten out of or their tongues torn out and were left to bleed to death. Still others had the bleeding heads of the slain tied around their necks while waiting their turn to be tortured. These atrocities are similar to those Saddam Hussein reportedly inflicted during his rule as president of Iraq. Now you notice how they're always trying to deflect. Here it is. America has been one of the greatest places in the world that have committed so many atrocities, but they're always trying to push it off on another nation. It says Nahum also said Nineveh was full of lies and robbery, and so is America, Babylon the Great. They're full of lies and robbery. Assyria deliberately deceived other nations, and that's what Esau did here in America. Because when you go to the book of Revelation, chapter 20, what you have to understand that this part of this book goes back into history. All right, it goes back during the time of when Esau was taken out of rulership and the ancient pagan Roman Empire became the Holy Roman Empire, where Jake was ruling, the Israelites were ruling, okay? And they were bound for 1,000 years, so there was a sentence upon them where they could not move or do anything for the period of 1,000 years. And then once that 1,000-year period was up, they were loosed out of that sentence. And the very first thing they did was what? In Revelation 20:7, and when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. And pretty much this is what they did. There's a particular time in history called the Renaissance. When you look at the word Renaissance, it's a French word, which means rebirth. Re is back, and naissance is where you get the word nacer, and you have many other variations, which means to be born. So Renaissance is being reborn, or the rebirth. The rebirth of who? It was properly named that because the ones that were in that prison sentence for 1,000 years were released. So they were reborn into the earth, so to speak. And from that point on, they deceived the world because they had the world in the power of their hand. And how did they deceive the world? First and foremost, by painting the Heavenly Father as a so-called white man, his son as a so-called white man, the angels as so-called white men, the Israelites as so-called white men, and putting themselves in the place of the original people of the earth, the Israelites. All right, they placed their faces on it. That's how they deceived the world. Okay. So going back to the article, Assyria deliberately deceived other nations. It would enter into binding treaties that it had no intention of keeping. See? And that's what these devils do. That's why they send economic hitmen. And if that doesn't work, then they send the real hitmen. And when they make these different treaties, they don't keep the treaties because that's not what they do. Their thing is all about getting what you have, benefiting off of you, without them having to lose anything. What scripture is that? Okay, I'm in the wrong chapter. And that's what these devils have been doing for a long time. I'll just go straight to the point. Psalms 55:21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So no matter what, they didn't honor their treaties. You know, all you got to do is speak to Gad, the so-called North American Indians, which signed, I believe, over 450 treaties, peace treaties with these devils. And these devils didn't honor not one. Because they're not men of honor. They're not moral men. You know, they are base men, and base men do base things. All right, so going back to the article, it says, once the Assyrians gained the confidence of another nation, they would break their treaty with it and demand tribute from its leadership. And you see that happening with America. All right, it says the word robbery means to rend in pieces. It denotes a wild beast tearing its prey to pieces and connotes the type of deceit, violence, and bloodshed that Assyria used against the nations it conquered. And America does the same thing. Let's see. There was a precept that just came to mind. Let me see if it'll come back. Rend in pieces. It denotes a wild beast tearing its prey to pieces and connotes the type of deceit, violence, and bloodshed that Assyria used against the nations it conquered. There was a precept that just came to mind and just left just that quick. Trying to think. Well, you know what? I'll go to this other one for the time being. Hopefully that one will come back. Let's go to the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2. And 12. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establisheth a city by iniquity. Why? Because if you do that, eventually there's going to be repercussions. You know, you're going to have to pay the piper, so to speak. You're going to have to pay. And America and the world has been established by deceit. It came back. Woo! Let's go real quick to Psalms 73. And I believe there's another one like this, but I can't think of it right now. I will not read it. If you brothers know what I'm talking about, you can pull it up. Psalm 73, and I'll start at 8. They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens, in blasphemy. It says, and their tongue walketh through the earth. See, their tongue walketh through the earth. Why? Because they deceive the people of the earth by their policies, by their so-called religion, policy, way of living, so on and so forth. So back in Habakkuk 2 and 12, woe to him that buildeth the town with blood and establishes the city by iniquity. Back in Psalm 73 and 9, they set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walketh through the earth. That's the part that I'm talking about here. Therefore his people return hither, and waters of a full cup are wrung out to them. Why? Because after they finish plundering the earth, they come back home, and waters of a full cup are wrung out to them, because they take everything. They can never have enough when you read up above in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. So waters of a full cup are wrung out to them. But guess what? They'll get into a business deal with other nations, but the other nations do not benefit off of that deal. The only ones that benefit is America. And if the nation that they made a deal with benefits, it's only their leaders that benefit. The rest of the people suffer for it. So let's go back to this article. It says, their prey departed not. Let me see. Right, so it says their prey departed not, means Assyria, which in this case we're dealing with America, never stopped functioning like such an animal and plundering other nations. And the prey departing not is mainly the Israelites. You see? Thou didst show them no mercy. That's why the Lord said that. Let's go to Jeremiah 49. And we're going straight to the point. 12. For thus saith Yahweh, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. So who is that? This is the Israelites. We were created to be a righteous nation. You know, we were created to be a sovereign nation. We were not created to be servants and slaves. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? So we were not created to be servants or slaves. We were created to be royalty. The only one we were supposed to serve is the Most High Yahweh. And now we serve Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai because he sent his son as a great sacrifice for us. But we were set up to be a royal nation, a royal priesthood. But what happened? We fell as a nation. So we suffered under the hands of these devils. So we assuredly drank of that cup. And we are the saints of the Lord, the apple of his eye. And we had to drink of that cup of slavery. And art thou he, you Edomites, that shall altogether go unpunished? So will you go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. So you're going to drink of that cup that you dished out to the world. You know, our punishment is up. Our punishment is temporary. Your punishment is going to be for a period of 1,000 years. And after that, you're going to be rounded up and burnt up. And that's it. Good riddance, boy. Whew. It says, so now let's jump down to the depraved. Now, what does the word depraved mean? It means morally corrupt, wicked. And this should be a word that describes America. The United Depraved States of America. Because this place is depraved. And this is why the Lord, you know, pretty much calls America the mother of harlots. And the mother of harlots, but the other one, the mistress of witchcrafts. Because they've mastered all of the different ancient nations, sorceries and witchcrafts and rituals into one. So like here in America. And I'm going to show you something that the Elder Apostle Gabar goes into from time to time, you know, which are these satanic holidays. All right. And I want you to see something. When we read through this, I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to show you that these satanic, like when we have the Passover or we have high holy days, you know, it's filled with, you know, with food and drink, you know, and the camaraderie of the brotherhood, or if the, you know, brothers celebrating these high holy days with their families. But now when you go into Esau and the other nations' practices of their so-called holidays, it goes into debauchery. It goes into depraved lifestyles. It goes into sexual immorality, you know, sexual rights. All right. So it says Nahum provided a detailed description of Nineveh's collapse as the Middle Babylonian coalition attacked the city. And in this case today, it's going to be the Russians that are going to take America down. In verse 2 and 3, the battle is already in progress. As the machinery of war rolls through Nineveh, there is a sound of whips cracking, wheels clattering on the stone pavement, horses galloping through the city, and chariots jostling each other for position as they speed through the streets. And now you can apply this to America and her modern day chariots, which are cars, trucks, so on and so forth. And what do you have in the engine of cars, trucks? They call it horsepower. So it's not actual horses, but it's known as horsepower. So today, the modern day chariot, because there's no longer on the streets. I mean, you still have horse and buggies, but you don't have people traveling mostly in horse and buggies. When you see somebody in a horse and buggy, they're either in the country somewhere, or they might be in the city, taking a joyride. But for the most part, people travel in their vehicles. It says the sun's reflection off the swords and spears strike terror in Nineveh and the Ninevites as they try in vain to flee from imminent slaughter. And you're not going to be able to escape this imminent slaughter once the glittering spear, which are those missiles, come a knocking at your door. The invading army and the people of Nineveh stumble over the thousands of corpses that fill the streets during the battle, right? Because you will have a time where you have a lot of dead bodies all over the place, because you will have, there will be civil war and class wars and race wars. And now, one thing I noticed about the migrant situation that they have, coming up in here, you have a lot of migrants from other nations like Moab, Ham, Ishmael, Elam. I believe Elam down there too, if I'm not mistaken. You have a lot of different people from different nations coming to America, right? Through the borders, right? The Darien Straits, so on and so forth. But the ones that they're focusing on the most and putting in the media, that are causing the most problem, right, are the so-called South and Central Americans, which are Jake. They're the ones that's so-called killing people, robbing people, doing all kind of chaos. You're not seeing when they say a migrant attacked a police officer, or a migrant robbed this woman, or a migrant stole a car, whatever they did. They're not showing you Moabites and Hamites, and which are Chinese, African, Arabs, of that nature, which are coming through the border. They're showing you South American, so-called South Americans, and so-called Central Americans. All right, because their main focus is pushing Jake here and the people of America to fight against the so-called Latin tribes. Not the other nations coming through the borders. Check that out. When you look at the different migrant crises that are happening, incidents with police or with other American citizens, it's all so-called South and Central Americans. They're doing that shit on purpose to build up that tension against, the Israelites that are coming into this country, but leaving the heathen alone. Think about it. It says Nineveh was destroyed because she practiced the crimes of religious prostitution and witchcraft. Okay? Nahum said, because of the multitude of the harlotries of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, that selleth nations through her whoredoms, harlotries, and families through her witchcraft. Now, she practiced the crimes of religious prostitution and witchcraft. Now, I want you to check something out. Let me grab this other precept and hold that on deck. And then we'll go and get this actually, it's not an article, but it's more so of a list. You could type in scribd, as you can see spelled here, SCRIBD, right? And then type in list of satanic holidays. You can put SRA if you want. Now look, date, January 1st. The date is January 1st, right? New Year's Day. Druid Feast Day. See? So when you're celebrating New Year's Day, you're celebrating Druid's Feast Day. And what did the Lord say about that? Let's go real quick to Jeremiah chapter 10. Right? And 1. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. So it says not to learn the way of the heathen. So when you're celebrating so-called, New Year's Day, you're celebrating a demonic holiday, which is Druid feast day, which the Druids were the men of the oak, where you get the word Hollywood. The reason why it's called Hollywood is because it comes from hollowed wood, which the Druids would use as a wand to cast spells on people. And that's how they've been casting spells on a lot of people through their movies, so on and so forth. Then it says here age 15 to 33, which I'm not sure what that is. Then you have January 7th, Saint Wine Ball Day. It's a blood. This is just a celebration. They didn't even put what type of so-called a satanic holiday it is, but this is a blood. So this particular holiday, satanic holiday, is a blood holiday. They have to sacrifice animal or human sacrifice and dismemberment. All right. January 17th, satanic revels, sexual. So this particular one is a sexual type of holiday, satanic holiday. Oral, anal, vagina, 7 to 17 female. All right. And that's what it means about, she practiced the crimes of religious prostitution, because you had certain rituals that they practiced in these pagan processions or pagan rituals that had to do with sex. Like in 2 Maccabees 6, right? I'm going to go straight to the point. It says, for the temple, meaning the temple in Jerusalem, was filled with riot and reveling, partying, just wild shit, by the Gentiles, the other nations, who dallied with harlots, see, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. Why? Because this is how they kept, their so-called holidays, through sexual magic, through sex, whether it was man on woman, woman on woman, man on man, man on beast, woman on beast, so on and so forth. A P to the E to the D to the O. And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. So you see in the different so-called holidays, satanic holidays, and the types that they are. Whether it's just something as a feast day, which is satanic, or was a blood or sacrifice or sexual, right? Then here, January 20 to the 27th, abduction, ceremonial preparation, and holding of sacrificial victims for a Candlemas. And this is why you see a lot of children missing. Because see, it says they're abduction, sexual and blood. So this one is both sexual and blood. Oral, anal, vaginal, human sacrifice. And this is why you had the Bohemian Grove, where they have the so-called effigy, which is really actually a child. That's why when you hear them doing that so-called fake sacrifice, you have noises in the background, music and stuff, because that's how in the ancient world, the parents, so that they wouldn't, change their mind, they would play loud music to drown out the cries of the child when they were being sacrificed. Female or child, any age. January 29th, Saint Agnes Eve, casting of spells. See? And that's what they do. They cast spells. February 2nd, another Candlemas. Sabbath festival. Blood. This is a sacrifice ritual. Animal and or human sacrifice. And you better believe that they hold to this. February 2nd, same day, satanic revels. Sexual. Oral, anal, vaginal. February 25th, Saint Walpurgis Day. Blood. Communion of blood and dismemberment. Any age. Alright? And it goes on and on and on. This one just passed. This one's coming up, March 1st. Saint Eschtado, however you say that. It's a blood sacrifice. Drinking of human blood for strength and homage to the demons. See? And it goes on and on and on. See, on March 20th, the spring equinox, they have what? Orgies. And the orgy is when a bunch of men and women get together and have sex with each other. How did Richard Pryor put it? You know, they go to a party one night. He said, you don't know who you effed or who effed you. Then you have Shrovetide or Shrovetide, 3 days before Ash Wednesday, which is a witch Sabbath. Then you have date varies, Good Friday, Day of Passion, Death of Christ, Blood, Human Sacrifice, Male Only, Adult. You know? And it goes on and on and on throughout the whole year. So these are all satanic holidays, but they're painting them, you know, as being righteous. And when you're celebrating New Year's Day, or you're celebrating Christmas or Thanksgiving or any of those other St. Valentine's Day, these are all demonic, you know, these are all demonic. And that's what America does and promotes. So jumping down here in the article, Nineveh is portrayed as a beautiful prostitute standing in the public square. And what does this remind us of? This reminds us of the vision that the Apostle John saw concerning America, that harlot. Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. Who is this great whore? America, that sitteth upon many waters. When you jump down to the 18th verse, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, to let you know it's a land. All right? And you might say, well, America is a country, not a city. Well, how big is a country? How big is a city? A city is as big as its people. If you are born or naturalized in America, you are considered to be what? An American citizen. The word citizen goes back to city. So America is this large city. That's why she's called the great city. Babylon the Great, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And then where you see that sitteth upon many waters, the many waters represent peoples and nations and tongues. When you jump down to the 15th verse, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And America is known as what? The great melting pot. Because you have every nation here. I don't think there's no nation on the planet that is not here in America. From their allies to their most sworn enemies. All nations are here in America. All right? Now jumping back up. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of a fornication, because all nations are in bed with America through their leadership and through the actions of these nations. This is why you can go anywhere on the planet, China, Singapore, you know, and other Tokyo and other, you know, foreign countries, and you'll see, you'll feel like you're at home. They have skyscrapers, you know, they have all the American franchise restaurants like Burger King, McDonald's, you know, Hooters, and all different other type, you know, of whether it's restaurant franchises or stores, so on and so forth. All you have to do is type in on Google Americanization. And what is Americanization? Americanization is the pushing of American values, thoughts, and ways upon the world. All right, just like during the time of the Greeks, which they used something called Hellenization, and the time of the Romans, where they used something called Romanization, where they pretty much got the people that they conquered inducted into their way of life, their laws, you know, their speech, their tongue, so on and so forth, their values. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This woman is America. The scarlet-colored beast is, you know, is these European nations, which you have the scarlet colored beast or the red dragon, which had 7 heads and 10 horns, as you see here. The 7 heads represent the Greeks. There are 7 major empires: the Greeks, the Greeks, the Romans, the Spanish, the French, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britain. Those are the 7 major Edomite empires of the planet, and America is the 8th. The 10 horns represent the common market or the European Union. At one time, it used to be the European Economic Community. Started off with 6 member nations. Back in March of 1957, they started getting the ball rolling. January 1st, which is so-called New Year's, 1958, January 1st, 1958, that's when they got their charter. All right, they started off at 6, and as the time progressed, they expanded to 12. But it's really 10 when you look at the list. And eventually today they're up to like 27 or possibly more. But that's the core of it. Those are the 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and decked with, and you know what's heavy? It says, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. What's heavy about this is that when the French first were giving America that Statue of Liberty, so-called Statue of Liberty, the first thing they were going to do, because it was made out of copper, they were going to actually paint it purple and red, but they couldn't find a paint that would stand the salt water or whatever, the corrosion. They couldn't find a paint that would stick to the actual statue without fraying away. And she also had a cup in her hand, but they replaced it with a lamp, to signal to the ships that were coming into the harbor. So there's a lot of hidden mysteries. Oh, and when you go back to ancient Rome, I think it's Ostia in Rome, Ostia. You also have a ancient stone carving of a Statue of Liberty. I don't know if they called it Libertas back then, which is Lady Liberty. So there's a lot of history, man, that connects America with Rome. It says, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And this is pretty much encapsulates the moral compass of America, the degenerate, debaucherous way of America. Now, let's go back. Oh, matter of fact, let's read the 5th verse. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And when you break down these 3 phrases, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, abominations of the earth, each one of these phrases breaks down to 6. And when you go into the Hebrew, the numeric value of each letter, this one breaks down to 6, this one breaks down to 6, this one breaks down to 6. That number of the beast, of the man. 666. Alright, so let's go back here. Nineveh is portrayed as a beautiful prostitute standing in a public square, and that's why the angel pretty much got mad at the Apostle John and said, look, man, why did you marvel when you saw this woman? Because the world has been seduced by the ways of America. And that's where they leave the customs of their nation, their religion, to come to America to be American. That's why you'll see, Arab women and East Indian women and women of the other nations come here, and you'll see them twerking, or you see them doing, like, dressing scantily like these American skunks, because that's what America does. It demoralizes and lowers the standard of these nations. And that's what they were set up to do, according to the prophecy. It says, like a prostitute, the city is decked in all its meretricious finery. Right, and the meretricious finery is found within Revelation. There's another one, but I'm not sure where it is. But I know this one is in Revelation 18, and right here. And the Revelation 18:14, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from me, and all things which are dainty. You look up the word dainty, liparos or liparos, which is where you get the word lipos, which is fats. And you see that America, cheeseburgers, hot dogs, anything fat, fried ice cream, and goodly. The word goodly here goes back to the Greek word lampros, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, lampros. Right? Shining, brilliant, clear, transparent, splendid, magnificent, splendid things. An example, luxuries or elegancies in dress or style. So you have Fashion Avenue, which is 7th Avenue in Manhattan, New York. All right? Fashion Avenue. You have the wholesale district all throughout, the mid-Manhattan, somewhere in that area. Okay, so it says the city is decked in all its meretricious finery. Nineveh used her natural charm, and in so doing she enticed and seduced other nations into her diabolical religious system. And that's why the nations leave their country, leave their religion, and adopt American ways, because they're drinking of that cup. And the Lord used America as such. Let's go to, see, the Jeremiah 50 or 51. '51. It says, Jeremiah 51:7. Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunken with what? With her philosophies. Right? The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. So they all partook of that cup. And that's why they're mad. They're raving. They'll leave their, even though they have false religions and false gods, but they'll leave their false gods, which may have some form, of like decent living, so to speak, some type of morals to it, to a debaucherous place, trading in something that's, trading in something fucked up for something worse, for lack of better words. All right? And that's why this place is going to be destroyed. It says this is an apt picture of Ishtar, the goddess of sex, fertility, and war. And notice, these are the main things they push in this society. Sex, not so much as fertility anymore, but war, sex and war. Eros and Thanos. Like erotic and death. Nineveh used the tactics of prostitutes to lure surrounding nations into her control. Right? They use their goodies. They get you in, and what happens? Some instances, you'll go to a club, right? You meet this fine ass chick. Cardi B used to do that shit. She'll go, to those different clubs, and then she'll lure a sucker with money into a hotel room, and then the 2 or 3 individuals will jump out of the closet and rob this guy. She used her glamour, beautiful palaces and temples. America. That's why the Guess Who did that song, American Woman. Stay away from me. Color lights may hypnotize, sparkle someone else's eyes, because this is something that America pushes. It looks beautiful. City of lights, all this glitz and glam, and oh my goodness, extravagant. But then when you start to get involved in this society to climb up that ladder, so to speak, you'll see that you have to be, the more depraved you are, the further you get in this society. Ask P. Diddy. Beautiful palaces and temples, mighty army. And who has a more mighty army than America? Fabulous wealth, because people are getting paid off of this place. And imposing art and architecture to tempt nations to their destruction. See? Because all nations, you didn't have skyscrapers prior to America. The skyscrapers started, I think that was 1800s. First one was in Chicago, which was an insurance company that was erected 10 stories. That was the tallest building in the world. And from there, it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, these other nations started doing the same thing and building these tall skyscrapers. All right. But the Most High saw everything and pronounced sentence. Behold, I am against thee, said the Lord of hosts, and I will uncover thy skirts from thy face, and will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And that's what's happening right now, because the prophets are out here exposing these devils, and eventually that's going to lead to their destruction. Let's go to Second Timothy. 2 Thessalonians 2:8. And then shall that wicked be revealed. Who is the wicked? Esau. Beginning with the international bankers, the so-called white man, so you can understand. Whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. And how is the Lord consuming them with the spirit of his mouth? The prophets out here prophesying and exposing them. Then after the exposure, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, because the Lord is going to take this place out by way of thermonuclear destruction and the lasers that's coming up out of those chariots. He says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. And they have the technology to accomplish all of these things. And the Lord gave it to them to fulfill their lot. All right, so, you can read more of this article here if you want. I didn't read all of it. I read some of it. I guess this is the guy that put it together. And I didn't even read half of this. I read just a little bit of it, and you see how all of this stuff parallels what America is doing. All right. Let me see. For the second time in as many chapters, the Most High revealed his opposition to Nineveh, or America in this case, and vowed to punish her fully. Nahum 2:13. Her disgraceful acts against other nations will cause the Most High to disgrace her. The Lord will throw Nineveh's skirts over her face, exposing her to the world, stripped of her pride and glory. And the main reason the Lord is doing it is for the controversy of Zion. All right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.